Hello, I'm Paul Sloan with Small Vines, and I'm passionate for Pinot. I first became passionate about Pinot Noir in the restaurant industry. I really fell in love with my job was to pair the Pinot Noir varietal was the most useful in pairing with different foods and the dishes that the chefs were putting out in my restaurants. I decided to take my passion for Pinot Noir out into the vineyard and actually plant extremely high-density vineyards in the Sonoma coast and the southern part of the Russian River Valley so that I could learn how to skillfully farm and vinify Pinot Noir into what I believe is to be one of the most expressive and complex, interesting challenges in the wine industry. In the restaurant world, you have many, many different opportunities to experience wines, and I first kind of fell in love with what I call traditional California Pinot Noir from the late 60s and early 70s and even early 80s. And then one night, a gentleman came in and ordered a bottle of Domaine de la Romanée-Conti. It was a 1978 vintage. Romanée-Conti was the vineyard, and that just absolutely got my mind working on how is it possible to get a wine this complex, this cerebrally interesting. I actually, at 22 years old, did not even consume the entire glass of wine because I wanted to come in the next morning when I had to do inventory and revisit the aromatics and just the whole structure, how this wine was made, where it came from, and I was just fascinated about it. And at that moment was when I realized that Pinot Noir was truly a wine that expressed the place that it was grown in its best expressions more than the artist that would guide the fruit through the cellar practice. So that became my passion. I had grown up on a 250-acre horse and cattle ranch, and I felt that I was a good steward of the land and wanted to try my hand at not only planting the vineyards that I would make wine from, but farming them organically, regeneratively, so that I really had this incredibly natural palette to work from as the artist in the cellar. I decided to start the business by getting hired as a vineyard manager to develop high-density vineyards. We're talking almost 4,000 vines per acre, and the average in California is about 1,089 vines per acre. So I found a few folks that believed in my philosophy and my passion for Pinot and allowed me to plant vineyards on their property. After saving money from developing these vineyards, my wife and I were able to lease back our first vineyard in 2005, and that was our first vintage of actually making small vines into a bottled Pinot Noir. Since then, we have leased back an additional 5 properties from folks, and we've purchased a 12.5-acre ranch, the TBH Vineyard, which is where our winery is, and kind of where half of our production comes from for our winery. So stylistically, what we're after is to make a wine that has minimal inputs. I'm stylistically what I would call a low input or a minimalist winemaker, and I put a lot of effort, 32 passes through touching every single vine every year. So I'm maximizing the potential of the fruit through high levels of excellence in the vineyard, which helps me minimize the input in the cellar. I think that this gives the most complex wine, whether it be a rosé of Pinot Noir that we harvested fairly early to give us 11.5% potential alcohol still rosé, or the sparkling wine that we're making from Pinot Noir that just has incredibly good acidity. All of these things important for their complement to food. So I refer to the style as traditional, meaning that the best expressions of Pinot Noir that I have ever tasted have always been sort of unadulterated, that they're not showing the fingerprints of the winemaker in the process, but they're showing the efforts in finding an exceptional location, in farming Pinot Noir exceptionally, and then kind of being a minimalist in the cellar to really let what Mother Nature gave you from picking a great site that was farmed at a very high level. So traditional, I guess, following the traditions of all of the greatest Pinot Noir expressions I've seen. And those were the characteristics that I kind of saw in those great expressions and am trying to bring to the glass. To start and kind of walk through the lineup of different wines that we produce, the Rosé of Pinot Noir, I feel it goes exquisitely from everything to a cheese and charcuterie platter with, strawberries and raspberries, to a lobster bisque. But when you age it for a few years, and this is not something that most people think about, aging incredibly well-made rosé is so exquisite when you put 5 or 7 years on it, and you try serving that with your turkey dinner on Thanksgiving, best pairing you'll ever have. When you get into my Pinot Noirs, they tend to have a lot of structure. They tend to have a lot of, the wines are incredibly dense due to the concentration of flavor we get from the high density plantings. So I start thinking about lamb and duck are two of my absolute favorites. You cook a spring lamb or a state cuvee, which is kind of the art of the blend, is just absolutely fantastic with a lamb. And then something like duck, if you can cook duck, and I'm not talking just duck breast, but a little bit of the leg, some confit with the duck breast. Don't over sauce it. That was something that I always learned with the great chefs that I worked with. Not too much sauce. That's why you need a delicate, a wine like Pinot Noir that's a little more delicate. It's not going to overpower the meal. The sauce isn't overpowering the protein that you've put on the plate. Just absolutely exquisite combination with the TBH Pinot Noir. I've been doing this for 26 years and I can't really imagine doing anything else. I guess I would spend more time surfing if I was able to retire, thanks to the great Pinot Noirs we're producing. But maybe selling Pinot Noir with a distributor, or one of my other passions would be helping people find exceptional ranches for planting Pinot Noir, and maybe working more in the real estate side, helping other wineries and producers find the right fit for the style of wine that they're producing. And I feel like I have a fair bit of experience in that over the years of planting over 40 vineyards and, kind of walking these ranch properties, having grown up on a ranch, understanding. So I might do that, but it wouldn't not have anything to do with Pinot Noir. I just wouldn't be making it. Passion for Pinot is probably the most well-organized event that we've ever attended, which is great for a producer because you're there, everything that you need is there. You've got everything set up. The guests that attend always seem to be high level. The people are there to really appreciate one of the finest wines in the world, and they seem to be passionate for it as well, which there's nothing more that a producer loves than having passionate people at their table sharing conversation about our philosophy, about our land stewardship and our kind of environmental practices, as well as our cellar practices and so forth. So, I think it comes down to being an incredibly well-organized event that has just the best guests, the best people attending the event. And that really makes it worth it for producers like ourselves we're small family-owned winery, and to have access to this quality of guest is just a fantastic opportunity for us. So thank goodness for Passion for Pinot.